Hello and welcome to another Mondays with May. If you're new to my channel, yes, that's me. Hi, my name is May. I love yarn. I love to knit and crochet. Those are my hobbies. Yes, I am going to be knitting with you. And by the way, I also happen to have been born visually impaired, legally blind, and completely colorblind. So I mostly knit and crochet by feel. And well, if you're a returning viewer, did you happen to catch my yarn unboxing from Knit Picks over the weekend? What did we open? Yeah, we opened up some Brava tweed in the color pumpkin bread. And what did I say? I was like, I need a tweed pumpkin, right? I was like, nope, I need a tweed pumpkin. So now I told myself, we already knit pumpkins together. Save the tweed pumpkin for next year, right? Well, I just can't, you guys. I was like feeling this yarn, seeing this yarn. I do have enough sight. I can still see the tweed. And you know what's fun about tweed? You can feel the tweed, right? Got these little fluffy little nups in there. Yeah, that's really cool. So I just had to do it, you guys. I was like, we need a tweed pumpkin. So that's what we're doing today. We're making, it's the week of Halloween. It's the Monday of the week of Halloween. And I was like, we need a tweed pumpkin this year. So yes, I am using the same pattern, the free spice and clove pattern off of Knit Picks and We Crochet, the one we did a couple of weeks ago. So I want to hear from you. Say hello in the comment section. Let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what it is that we're doing together today. Are you knitting with me? Are you knitting pumpkins with me? Yeah, have you knit or crocheted the spice and clove pumpkins from Knit Picks? What yarn did you use? Did you do it in sport weight? Now, if you missed those videos, if you're totally brand new, we are using a pattern that is free, and the recommended yarn for that is a sport weight yarn. But like I said, it's a pumpkin, right? We don't have to use a sport weight yarn. And those first videos, I was using the Mighty Stitch Super Bulker. Yeah, really. I made a super bulky pumpkin. You can see I knit one and I crocheted one on my Finish It Friday a couple of weeks ago. And now this is a worsted weight yarn. It's the Brava worsted tweed. So we are working it up on a US size 6 needle or 4 millimeter, right? So, you know, what I say about the pumpkins is, you know, just go on the smaller side of the recommended needle and hook, right? So a worsted weight yarn, probably the recommended needle would be, you know, a 6, 7, 8, 9, or maybe a 7, 8, 9, something like that. So I'm doing with the 6, the 4 millimeter, because we want those stitches fairly tight on our pumpkin, right? We don't want the stuffing showing. So we are making our pumpkin today. We're going to see how it turns out, and I definitely want to hear about your pumpkins. What yarn did you choose? What colors did you make it? You don't have to make pumpkins orange, right? You can make pumpkins any color you want. How about neon orange? You guys, I don't really have much orange in the house. I said it before, I can't wear orange, so I have to buy orange specifically for pumpkins, okay? But I did think about it. I'm like, ooh, I bet there's some bright neon orange yarn out there somewhere. Maybe we'll have to do that in the future and do like our bright neon orange pumpkin. But this year, as wild as our pumpkins are going to get, is tweed pumpkins, because that's going to be pretty cute. So I want to hear about yours, and being that it's the week of Halloween, I want to hear from you. Like, did you do anything, you know, fun? Are you partaking in any of like the Halloween type or fall harvest type festivals, right? I know not everybody celebrates Halloween. I've said that before in my videos. I actually didn't grow up really celebrating Halloween for religious reasons. So sometimes I grew up in a small rural town in eastern Washington. It's an agricultural community. But, you know, we really, sometimes there was a haunted house in town, and, you know, sometimes there wasn't. Sometimes some of the neighbors kind of, different families would do haunted houses, but I was not allowed to attend those because my mom really didn't believe in Halloween. She really feels like the day is about Satan, and so we really didn't do much for Halloween. So I didn't go really. I did some harvest festivals on occasion, went trick-or-treating like it once, as a small child, and so we didn't do that stuff. So I don't have experience with a lot of that stuff as a kid, but I want to know if you're doing that stuff with you as adults or with your kids. Are you doing harvest festivals? Are you doing pumpkin patches? Are you doing haunted houses, right? So I want to know about it. Do you think they're fun? Do you think they're scary? Do your kids love them? What are your favorite things about them? What's your responses to them? So I don't have like a haunted house story from childhood, but I have a haunted mansion story from Disneyland. Yeah, who's been to Disneyland out there? Anybody? And who's been to the haunted mansion? What do you know about the haunted mansion, right? Well, my haunted mansion Disney experience did not occur in October. It occurred in August. I don't remember the exact year. It was after, if you don't know yet, if you're new to my channel or you've missed it somehow, I have had 3 guide dogs in my younger days. 3 beautiful, beautiful German Shepherd guide dogs. Genevieve was my first, Albie was my second, and Rosie was my third. I've talked about all 3 of them on this channel at different times when we're doing different stuff. So I've talked about Genevieve, my first guide dog, several months ago when I was talking about going sailing, right? And I said I went on a sailing trip with one of my ex-boyfriends with my guide dog Genevieve. And our big factor on whether or not we could stay the night on the boat was whether my guide dog could go potty, right? On the deck of the boat. Your dog has to do that to stay out there. It's something that I told y'all, if you don't know that, is that guide dogs are trained to, relieve themselves, right? Take care of their doggy business, go potty, right? On command. That's right. They're trained to take off their harness so they know that they're not working, and they understand that that behavior is not something that we do when we're working, right? So they have to have that distinction. So you take off your dog's harness, and with my first dog, her name was Genevieve, so I'd take off her harness, I would extend, we had leashes that were short, and then you could extend them out longer so your dog could have more room in front of you. So we would extend their leashes out on a long lead, and we would say to them, I'd say to her, Genevieve, do your business, and that was her command and her key to, go potty, do all the potty business, right? So she was very, very good at that. She understood what that meant. She understood no matter where we were at, if we were at home, if we were at school. She went to high school with me. She went to college with me. She and I traveled with my ex-boyfriend all the way to North Dakota. We took a road trip with her to North Dakota, to Astoria. We traveled all over with her, and she went potty in command. She, within a few minutes, right, she would go potty. And you know what? Even when she didn't have to go, if I gave her the command and she just wanted to make me happy and get on with the day, she would like drop and squat like a little girl dog to go potty, and she wouldn't even go, but she'd want me to see, like, look, I'm trying, right? I'll squeeze out what I can for you, so let's just, move on, right? Let's just move on with the day. We don't have to go. So she'd like fake going potty even when she didn't have to go, just so that we could get the ritual over. So she was super good at that, okay? So I get my second guide dog, Albie, A-L-B-E-E, and he and her were like the complete opposite in temperament, okay? Complete opposite. Now, she was his aunt, okay? Her, let's see, her half-sister, right? Same mother, different father, was his mother. So she was his aunt. So they were closely related, but they still had completely opposite temperaments, right? I mean, that can happen. We see siblings with really different temperaments. My sister and I had really different temperaments. So she was his aunt, but they had very different temperaments. And Albie was a sweet, sweet dog, but he was kind of a timid soul, right? He was a timid soul, and he wasn't always sure if he could even do his work as a guide dog, okay? Even the trainer, when I got him, I would ask her, he'd just stop in the middle of the sidewalk, and I'd be like feeling with my foot and reaching in front of me and looking for something, and I'm like, there's nothing there, right? There's no obstacle there. And she's like, yeah, he's like feeling unsure, and he's like telling you he can't do this, and You need to tell him to hop up and that he can. So I really had to be his cheerleader when I first got him. Yeah. Hard to have confidence in a big German Shepherd guide dog that needs you to be their cheerleader, right? And you said, you can do this, you can do this, right? But she's like, you need to tell him that he can do this. So he was a real timid soul. And the sweetest, gentlest German Shepherd you would ever met. My Albie was the sweetest, wanted hugs from everybody, wanted to crawl into everybody's lap, right? I have a picture of him sitting in my lap at the gym. I was on the leg press and he'd like want to get into my lap. He wanted to be in my lap. We went on a flight one time and it was turbulent, right? And he gets up and crawls into my lap. I mean, he wanted to be like crawl up inside of you all the time, even though he was like an 85-pound German Shepherd. He was a timid soul and sweet as could be. Loved hugs from everybody. So if I remember right, I will try to put this video actually in my editing app so I can put some pictures of him in the video. I did put some pictures of him, by the way, of all of my guide dogs in my Tuesday video from last week. How many of you watched my Tuesday video, my 200th video celebration? Who watched that? There's some pictures towards the end of my 3 guide dogs, including Albie, the timid soul we're talking about, okay? So I will try to put some more pictures of him and we're talking about him. One of his, we'll call it, unique features, right, of him when he was anxious when we were away from home is that he wouldn't want to go potty. This was a dog that needed, like, you know, home turf advantage to take care of business. Now, I know some of you are like that also. It's okay, right? He needed home turf advantage. And so when we would travel, he even did this in training, by the way. When I first got him and we were in training, he would hold it for a few days, right? And, you know, we're in training. We're taught to take them and give them like at least 6 times a day an opportunity to relieve themselves and even more, right? We're taught, you know, you don't want your guide dog to have accidents in harness or in public or anything like that. It's really important, you know, to give them ample opportunities to take care of that at appropriate places in appropriate times, right? Like not in the shopping mall. So this was a unique feature of Albie. Was like when he was stressed or he was unsure of the environment, he couldn't go, right? But his appetite was not diminished, okay? Which meant he was still eating and he was still drinking just fine. Large quantities of food. And so, you know, after a couple of days of that in public, you start to worry, right? So I get him in 2001 and I don't remember exactly what year it was. Probably either the summer, the August of 2002, 2003. I don't remember, but I just know it was during my graduate school years, after I got him and during those early years. 2002, 2003. But there was a woman that I'd met and she was sort of like shocked and horrified that I was, you know, in my 20s and had never been to Disneyland before. Yeah, that really bothered this woman. And, you know, I lived in Washington State and both my parents worked really hard. They both worked full time. They oftentimes would work 2 jobs, you know, but we struggled just to be middle class. And we struggled to make, we were home, my parents were homeowners, but you know, it was a struggle to make the mortgage payment and do life. And so we didn't go even on family vacations, you know, every year during my childhood, right? And when we did, you know, we traveled in the family station wagon. We often slept as a family, right? In the family station wagon. You know, occasionally we put a tent up in a campsite, you know. But we were not luxurious travelers. We'd stay with family and friends, you know, on rare occasions. We'd get 1 hotel room for, you know, all 4 of us, right? My mom and my dad and my sister and I to share. So we never went to Disneyland. Disneyland was way out of our budget. It was out of our price range. So if you haven't been to Disneyland, it's totally okay. Like, I understand it is extremely expensive to go there today. And it was over 20 years ago too, right? I had to get an airline ticket to go down there. Now I had to get my park hopper pass, and it would cost me $90 for a 3-day pass. And I know it's a lot more now. So it's $30 a day. And I know it's a lot more now even than then. But, she said, if you pay for your park pass, you fly down to where we live, and then we'll drive you down the next day. We'll drive you to Disney. We'll pay for the hotel. We'll let you stay with us, my daughter and me. And, we'll go to Disneyland. And I'm like, okay, so fly down there with Albie, my sweet little dog. I'm not going to name this woman because I don't have permission, and we're not friends anymore, so I won't be asking her for permission, right? So, but I fly in that day. I stay with her family at their home, and then we drive all the way down. It's a several-hour drive the next day to get from their place in California down to Anaheim. So, we get there. So we're going now like on 3 days, right, of traveling since, I've been traveling, and I got Albie with me. Albie's eating fine, y'all, but he's not going potty. I lived in Portland, Oregon, by the way, at the time, and he's like, Anaheim? I can't go potty in Anaheim, right? I mean, so we're dealing with that. Well, if you don't know yet, you can take guide dogs to Disneyland. They can go in there. But they recognize, it's a hectic environment for dogs. And they also recognize that a lot, and it gets hot, right? The pavement gets really hot in the afternoon. And they know you might not want to work your guide dog all day. And they also know that there's a lot of families, right, who vacation and go to Disneyland. And, you don't want to leave your dog, even your pet dog. You don't want to leave him in the car all day. And some hotels won't allow you to leave him there all day. So I don't know if you know that. But Disneyland, at least they did 20 years ago, I think they still do, have a really nice kennel facility where you can board. So if you're traveling, I'd call and look it up now to make sure it's still there. But this was 20 years ago. They did a really nice kennel facility for all people, not just people with guide dogs. And they said, hey, you can board your dog here for the day. And, we give you the little, ticket information. It cost you $20 a day back then. And you can come and go as you please all day and check on your dog and bring them food and water and walk them. And they have fans for them so they don't get too hot. And there's a fenced in, area for them to go potty. And they even have a fire hydrant in there for dogs who need fire hydrants, right? So sometimes I worked Albie in Disneyland, but sometimes I didn't because it's pretty stressful on a dog. And there's some rides at Disneyland that are not appropriate for a service dog, right? Like Matterhorn, Big Thunder, Railway, Splash Mountain. I don't even know if that stuff's open anymore. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, right? But you don't want to take a guide dog on that. That's not safe and that's not appropriate, and they know that. So I didn't take him on those rides, which meant either you keep him in the kennel or you take turns going on the ride, which you can do, by the way. There was 3 of us, right? A mom and her daughter and me. So we just took turns going on the rides when we had, and one of us would go, the other one would hold on to Albie. So he spent some time in the kennel, but he also walked around the park with us and did his guide dog stuff, unless it was, too hot out for him. So one of the places you can take your guide dog is the Haunted Mansion. Who's been to the Haunted Mansion at Disney? Yeah, who's been there? What do you know about it? It's all the way in the back of the park. Very back of the park. So you can take a service dog or a guide dog into the Haunted Mansion, but there's a but. What you do when you get into the Haunted Mansion, you go into the elevator, right? And then what happens in the elevator? The lights go out and it drops and people scream and kind of, bump into each other, and it's crowded. So they say if you have a service dog, you can't do that part because it's like legitimately not safe. And I get it, right? I get it, because people are screaming and bumping into each other, and they could legitimately, step on your dog accidentally or bump into them. The dog could get scared, be it in a real cramped public place in the dark with people panic. They might even bite somebody if they're truly scared, right? So they say you can't bring your dog through that feature because it's legit not safe. And I understand it completely. But with an elevator there, right, you know that they have to have like a emergency exit when the elevator's not working right? So if you have a service dog and you want to take your service dog into the haunted mansion and ride around in the little carts with you and look around, they can do that. But you have to take the underground, like back passage service emergency exit. A staff park employee will go with you and they'll escort you through these underground tunnels, right? They'll take you through these underground tunnels and they'll take you in there and you can bypass the elevator. And then they take you to where you can board. You know, they'll help you hold one of these little carts and help you get in and get your dog tucked in front of you. So that's what we chose to do. So this nice, really, really nice young kid who's like maybe 18 or 19, right? Disneyland's his summer job, you know, and he's all excited and he's loving it and he's excited about getting to escort a guide dog through there, and he's talking to us about, you know, the tunnels and asking my first trip, and so then he's really excited, right, because it's your first trip to Disney, and asking me how it's going and stuff. And so he's like, well, I'm gonna see you when you get off the ride. I'm gonna see you, you know, and I want to know, like, you know, what's this like for you, and do you enjoy it, and how's your dog doing, and all that. So he helps me. I'm riding in my little cart, right, with my friend's daughter who's maybe 16 or 17, and I got Albie in front of me, right, and I gotta like hold him in real close, and it's a tight fit, and we're going through the haunted mansion, right? Pretty soon, the haunted mansion gets a little bit scary. Gets a little bit scary in there, right? And Albie's kind of a timid soul. Yeah, he's a timid soul, and he's getting a little bit anxious in the haunted mansion. I can tell because I've got him tucked right into my person, right? And I can feel him in his little heart starts beating. I can literally feel his little heart beating as my arms around him, and his little heart starts beating faster, and he starts breathing faster, right? And he starts drooling, and I'm thinking, ooh, he's really scared. You know, he's a little bit nervous in here. He's a little bit scared in here. It's his first time through, so, you know, people can, you know, and dogs, their first time, they're like, I don't know, it's kind of scary. And I'm thinking, this is a dog who hasn't gone potty in like 3 days. What happens to the body when you get really scared? And I'm thinking, oh Lord, the area for him to go potty is all the way at the front of the park, right? I'm gonna have him guide me safely through the crowds to get all the way back to the area for him to go potty. And I don't want him to, you know, get scared and have an accident, and maybe I don't get it cleaned up right and somebody else steps in it because it's crowded. And so I say to the girl with me, I'm like, I think he has to go potty. Like I said, I don't know if he's gonna make it back to the front of the park, I say to her as we're getting off the ride. And we run into our little friend, right? And he's like, how was it? You know, and I'm like, well, I thought it was really cool, but I said, you know what, I think we have a problem. I think the guide dog has to go potty, right? I said, you know, and I said, is there anywhere back here? I said, I really don't want him to, you know, go while we're making our way to the front of the park. I don't want that. And he's like, well, there's a pet cemetery back here. How many of you knew that? There's a pet cemetery at the haunted mansion. Yeah, there is. And it's like a little grassy patch, and it's kind of elevated, those up off the ground. And it's elevated a ways up. And then on top of it, there's even like a little fence around it, like a little fence on top of it. And so he's like, there's the pet cemetery. You know, can he get up in there and go? And I like, I promise I'll pick up after him, right? If you have a dog, you know, that's part of having a dog, right? You have to be responsible, whether it's a service dog, and that does include service dogs. Service dog owners are not exempt from cleaning up after their dogs. That's just the law for everybody, right? So we have our little plastic baggie, and I reassure him, I said, I promise, you know, I'll be responsible for my dog, I will clean up after him myself, help me find a garbage can, you don't have to do any of this, and he's like, oh, it's fine, can you take him up into the pet cemetery, it'll be out of the way, it's right back here. And so I'm checking it out, and I take off his harness, and he's like, I don't know if I can get up into the pet cemetery. I mean, he's a dog. He's a little concerned about, peeing on another dog's grave. I don't know. But he was like really unsure, even though he had to go, about even getting in the pet cemetery. But I pick him up, front half first, because he was really big. Front half first, lift him over the fence to the pet cemetery, lift his back end up there, crawl up there myself, hop over the fence, extend his leash, give him the command. Yeah, and it doesn't take long at all, right? This is a dog who hasn't gone in a few days, and he goes potty for me. Finally, and I picked up after him. And I run back into the young man and I say, please help me find our trash can. And he's like, he went. And I said, yeah. And he started laughing and he said, I can't wait to get home and tell all my roommates that we literally scared the poop out of somebody at the haunted house today. I know somebody's going to tell me, that's not funny. Your guide dog was really scared. It's okay, you guys. He was a timid soul. That was just his nature. I took him on the haunted house again. Guess what? He did okay. He went on to the haunted mansion. He went through there 2 or 3 times. And after the first time, he was okay. He was going potty by then, so he wasn't so stressed out. And he knew what to expect. And he learned, right? He learned that the haunted mansion, they weren't actually going to get you in there. He learned that he should go potty before he goes on the haunted mansion, right? So that's my haunted house story for y'all this year. And that's just a little, info, right, for anybody else out there. If you have a service dog, I'm just saying, you might really think about taking them through haunted houses I wouldn't actually take a service dog through a traditional haunted house if there's people that are gonna jump out and grab you and stuff. I think that would actually be really scary for some service dogs. But the haunted mansion, there was legit not gonna be a real person that was gonna jump out and get us. I knew that there was, that he was gonna stay in that, which is why I had my arm around him. I was like, his job is to stay right here in this little cart with me, right? So make sure he's not jumping out because he's scared. So, and they do still allow, to my knowledge, they might have changed the policy in 20 years, but to my knowledge, they do still allow service dogs to do that. But I have no idea if they've, legitimately scared the poop out of anybody else's service dog besides mine. But I gave that young man a memory that he thought was really funny. He's like, oh, I'm telling my friends. He's like, I'm telling my roommates tonight when we get home. Yeah. It's like, we scared the poop out of someone for real today at work. So I know somebody's going to hear this and be like, that's not funny. That's not funny. Well, it's a little bit funny. Yeah, it's all right. It was all right. Albie had to really grow into his job, okay? He was just a timid soul, and it took a lot for him to grow into his job and understand that, he didn't have to be so scared. And the world wasn't so scary, okay? That we had to go through that with numerous things with him. We had to reassure him that the world wasn't scary. So, in fact, I had to do that with him, and I lived in Portland, and I don't know if you've been in downtown Portland, but downtown Portland used to. I don't know that it does anymore, because a lot of things have changed since I left Portland. But there used to be a lot of sculptures and artwork scattered throughout downtown Portland. And one of them, there was kind of a water, there were these fountains, and they had these big seals that were perched up like seals with their chest puffed out, right? He was legit, this dog was legit afraid to walk by a seal statue, okay? He was afraid to guide me, by a seal statue. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And finally, he just stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, and I finally had to ask somebody, if there's something in my pathway or what's going on. And this guy's like, no, there's nothing there. And he's like, but he's looking at the seal statue. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, there's a seal statue here. And he's looking at it. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, he's looking at the seal statue. So, this was a guide dog that wouldn't work past a seal statue, okay? So, I did ask the trainers, by the way. I said to the trainers, what can I do to convince my guide dog that he can safely guide me past a seal statue and there's no threat to it? And she said, you have to go up and show him that the seal statue is not a threat, that you're not afraid of it, that, you know, you're cool with the seal statue. It's friendly and it's fun. You know what my guide dog trainer said to me to do? She said, you need to go up and pet the seal statue and show him that it's not anything to be afraid of and that he can walk by it. Yeah. You know what I had to do in the middle of the city in downtown Portland? I had to pet a seal statue and convince my timid little German Shepherd that we could walk by it, that he could safely guide me across the path of a seal statue. And it was not a threat to us, and it wasn't going to jump out and bite us, okay? So when I say Albie was a timid soul who found the Haunted Mansion a little bit scary, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a guide dog that was afraid to walk me past a seal statue. Yeah. So he did get over that, by the way. I did make an absolute fool out of myself on the streets of Portland, pet up that seal statue. Oh, such a nice seal. Look, Albie, it's our friend. Come and say hello to the seal. Yeah, I had to do that on the streets of Portland to convince my big old German Shepherd that we could walk by it just like anybody else. And it was no threat to us at all. So, and he did, by the way, he did learn that. Once we had our little sessions of the seal statue's our friend, and it's not gonna jump out and get us. It's like really perched up and this really kind of like, you know, chest puffed out and, you know, really erect. It was a big seal statue up on a perch, so it was up over his head, right? It was up over his head, and to him, it, you know, clearly looked like it was, I don't know, a predator, like a legit threat to our safety, that it was gonna come out and get him. And so, when I say that Albie, you know, was intimidated by the Haunted Mansion, it's probably not that scary for the majority of service dogs, right? You have to consider the temperament of the dog that I'm talking about, okay? So for him, he didn't need a Haunted Mansion to make him anxious. Albie just needed a seal statue to make him think like, I don't know. He was a gentle soul. He was a sweet soul. And when I had him, I was in my training to get my doctorate degree in psychology. So I saw my first clients with him at my side. And I'm going to be honest with you, he was the best dog for that ever. So don't think that I always made fun of him or, you know, that I pushed him, you know, that he was a good guide dog. He was a really, really good, gentle soul, and he was perfect for me during that time in my life. I had clients that would literally ask if they could have him sit on the couch with them, and they would hold him and they would hug him and they would cry on him. Okay, I had clients that he would go and sit next to, and, you know, they would pet his little head while they were talking, and sometimes he'd just lay in his little bed and snore during therapy. And more than one client said, you know what, I really like the sound of his snoring. They say, you know what, that is so like soothing, just that little rhythmic snore of him. They say like, that is so soothing, it's so relaxing. And more than one client say that. They're like, I like the sound of his snoring. It's relaxing, it's soothing. It's just like, right? And so it's just this really gentle, quiet little doggy snore that would happen sometimes in the office. And so I had more than one client say, I really like that. So he was very, very, very appropriate for that time in my life. He did a lot of things for a lot of people during that time in my life, including me, and not just me. So when I say these things, and when I laugh at him a little bit, okay? I laugh at him a little bit. Like, know that I loved him. Although it did take me a while to really get to like him. I really wasn't sure if he could do the job. When I graduated with him after 3 weeks of training, I loved him dearly. I thought he's just the sweetest thing. But I don't know if he's cut out for the job, right? It's like you get a brand new coworker in the office, right? And they're just the sweetest person, and they're bubbly, and they're chipper, and they're kind, and they say, "Good morning, how you doing every day?" But they really aren't cut out for the job. You're thinking like, oh boy, how do we deal with this, right? We really want to keep this person in the office, but they're really struggling with the job. That's how things were with Albie and I when I got him. I was like, I just love him to pieces. He's just the sweetest guide dog, but I don't know if he's cut out for the job. And I legit told my mom that when she'd call me back when I was in training in 2001. I was like, I wanted him to be like Genevieve. I wanted him to be confident. I wanted him to be bold. I wanted him to be all the things that she was. And I had to really learn that, just like people and children, right? Guide dogs are individuals, and these two are at the opposite end of the spectrum. And so my mom told her coworker back when she was working, she said to her, "We have to pray that May falls in love with this dog, that she starts to like this dog, because she doesn't even really like her guide dog." And that wasn't totally true. Like, I loved him. I loved it when he'd sit on the floor and he'd crawl into my lap and wanted hugs and snuggles, right? But I was already thinking during class, like, this dog ain't gonna cut it. Like, he don't got what it takes for the job, right? He don't got what it takes. He's a timid soul. Like, how is he gonna do the job when, he's stops for no reason because he's scared, right? And he's like, I don't know if we can do this. And the trainer's like, no, just tell him he can. Just, cheer him on. Like, I don't want to be a cheerleader for a guide dog that's supposed to guide me safely. She's like, just cheer him on. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up loving him dearly. I promise you that. He was so sweet and so gentle. But, that's my Haunted Mansion story. That's what I have for you all today. I thought that'd be, something fun and interesting, since October is Blindness Awareness Month. I've been talking about my guide dogs a lot more this month. Some of my experiences. Thought that when we knit up my Tweed pumpkin, we'd have a little Haunted Mansion story for the week of Halloween. We talk a little bit more about guide dogs. You get to hear a little bit more about what life is like with the guide dog, right? Sometimes you gotta go potty at the pet cemetery, right? And sometimes you gotta pet seals in the street to help your guide dog know that it's not scary. So that is, I know I talked about Rosie some. That's life with a guide dog, y'all. Yeah, I got like pumpkin Halloween type stories about my dogs, and I was like, you know what? I think some people genuinely want to know, right? They genuinely want to know, what's life like with the guide dog, right? Well, now you know. They do yoga in court if they're Rosie, and if they're Albie, well, they got other issues. So, anyways, I think I'm almost done with this row here. I think I've talked to y'all long enough. I will try to remember to put this particular video. I did put 3 pictures of my guide dogs in at the end of the video from my 200th video celebration. I will try to put this one in the editing app as well. If I do that, though, I'll try to remember to come back and describe those photos to anybody else who might be visually impaired. That's the thing why I don't do photos a lot, because first of all, I am visually impaired, and it's really, really hard for me to even recognize and pick out my own pictures anymore. I'm just gonna be real with you guys. Like, I still have some sight, but I have to use my sight to like figure out what picture I'm looking at, right? And that's getting harder and harder for me to do. And so I don't include that many pictures anymore. But if I can find a few more pictures of Albie, I will do my best to put my little timid soul, who, left that young man with a memory forevermore of his Disneyland days. He got to scare the poop out of somebody at work. I will put that sweet little boy in there for you guys. Alrighty, well, here's our Tweed, our Tweety pumpkin. What do you guys think of Tweed pumpkins? Yes or no? The color is called pumpkin bread in the Brava Tweed. What do you think? I think I'm going to do a few more rounds on this by myself, and then I will start the decreases, and we'll have a Tweed pumpkin, and you just know. What do you think? It's the last week of October. The spider web top is still lingering. Getting closer though. It is. I think it's gonna make it for Finish It Friday, but you'll have to come out for Finish It Friday and see. Did the spider web make it, or we're just gonna be looking at Tweed pumpkins? I mean, we've already seen pumpkins, right? So, okay, my friends. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, for hanging out, for making pumpkins, for hearing more tales of the guide dog days. And you know what we have to say, right? Creativity is for everybody. Whether you see or you see like me, which is not in color, not so much, or you don't see it all. Creativity is for you. And whether it's knitting or crocheting or sewing or quilting or beading or sculpting or painting or weaving or carving or whatever it is that you do today, is a great day to craft and create. Thank you so much for listening. I know, some of you are like, I can't believe you told a poop story. Yeah, I did. Alrighty, until next time, happy stitching. Bye-bye for now. Some of you aren't coming back after that story, are you? You're like, oh no, she told a poop story. I'm not coming back. Okay.
Button. Double tap to activate.
So if you are visually impaired,
System sound volume set to 0%.
Here's a little description of what I did in the editing app. I went ahead and added my welcome screen, which says welcome to my channel, spelled out in blue and red yarn on a white sheet on my hardwood floor. Then there's the video. At the end of the video, I put 3 pictures. First picture is a picture of myself and Albie. We are riding on the streetcar in Portland, Oregon. However, it was like a vertical picture, and in the editing for YouTube, they have to go horizontal. So I'm cut off, but that's totally fine. You see me all the time. You see kind of my torso from the neck down, and then you see his big, happy, smiley little face. He had such the sweetest smile. Albie had the sweetest smile. Like complete strangers on public transit would say, oh, he's smiling. Okay, he had the sweetest smile. He had a really dark black face. He was the sweetest German Shepherd ever. So you see his big, sweet, smiling face as he rode the streetcar every day. The next picture is after he retired, and I had my third guide dog, Rosie. So when he retired, he went and lived at my parents' house, and he was a pet. So it's a picture of him laying on their couch, and it's a picture of her right next to him. They're beside each other on the couch because she was then my working dog, and she's a very light sable colored German Shepherd. And then the last picture is a picture of him on the day that I graduated with my doctorate degree. Now you don't see, you see my back in the picture because I'm sitting down at a table, so it's the back of me. But behind me at the table is Albie, and he's laying down in his harness, and he's got the big, we put a robe on him too. Okay, he was graduating too. He had to wear the robe and all the gear for our doctorate degree. So it's a picture of him in his harness with his graduation robe, because you know he was included, right? When you get your doctorate degree, your guide dog who's been on that journey with you has to have a robe too. So that's a picture of him, my timid soul who did learn how the Haunted Mansion was not so scary, learned to walk by seals confidently, no problem, got his big boy pants on, learned to do the job. And the last screen says thank you for watching, and it's also spelled out in blue and red yarn. And of course, thank you for watching.
Stop recording.